Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today Darkness Katie is here and we're going to be talking about some of my favourite fictional villains. I do love a good fictional villain. I feel like if a villain is done well, it just completely like makes the book for me. On TV shows as well. I'll just shout out a few of my fictional faves from TV shows. So Catra from She-Ra, I love her so much. And also Horde Prime in the final season. He's like the big bad, but he's so dramatic and I just love it. Like he projects giant things of himself up in the world, and then also whenever he like ends scene, he like clicks and the lights go off, and oh, it's just iconic. Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, I love her so much. If you haven't watched my Tinder video where I go on Tinder and pretend to be Azula, I would highly recommend that if you want some entertainment. Yeah, I love Azula. Klaus from The Vampire Diaries, I love him. Hans from Frozen, he's like, I don't know, the scene where he's like, oh Anna, if only there was someone who loved you. That's like my favourite betrayal scene ever. Yeah, okay, if I think of any more I'll come up with them, but yeah, so let's just get into the video. So I have been known once or twice to thirst after villains on Twitter. Oops. So yeah, so actually we'll start with Odium from the Stormlight Archive. So he's like the god of kind of passion, and I think that makes him such a great villain because he's like so kind of, I don't know, he's very evil, but he's kind of like a charming evil, which is the kind of thing I like. But yeah, and just his kind of conversations that he has with Dalinar I think are so interesting, and yeah, I find him a very fascinating villain to read about. And if you don't know, the Horny Cosmere bot actually started because of some Odium thirst tweets. So yeah, so that's that. I don't know, I think Odium's a very interesting villain and I like him. I like the kind of idea of this like passion and how it's like almost an intense emotion rather than like a evil emotion, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really like Odium, and obviously I had to bring up the Cosmere in some way. Okay, then next we have the Prince character from The Killing Moon. So I think he is such a fascinating villain. Like, it's a really interesting book, this, in terms of politics, because it's like almost state versus church, but you don't know who to root for and you don't know like who's doing the right thing. And the prince reminds me, oh, that's who I meant to think of, Zahir from Legend of Korra. He is such a fascinating character, like, but he's really, and I think the thing that makes him like really scary is because you sort of agree with what he's saying and he's just sort of going about it in the wrong way. And I think it's similar for the prince character. I think the prince almost has like good intentions, or like what he kind of wants you sort of agree with, but because the way he's going about it, that's sort of what's making him the villain. And I think that's very like fascinating, and yeah, so I really like him. He's such like a kind of, yeah, charming villain, I don't know. So then next we have Minya from Strange the Dreamer. So I love Minya so much. She's such a fascinating character. I've said this like every time, but yeah, and especially in Muse of Nightmares when we find out more about her and what she does, and she has a very interesting like power dynamic with her kind of like family, and she obviously she's kind of doing what's like best for them, sort of, or what she thinks is best, but she does it in like a very powerful and like not powerful, in like a very kind of controlling way. Her story is kind of very tragic, and she's kind of dealing with it the only way she can cope. Like, she's been through all this trauma and she doesn't want anything bad to happen to her family again, so the way she kind of copes with that is becoming almost this like antagonist figure. So I just think that's fascinating to read about, and like how she became the way she was, and yeah, just her like backstory and everything. I think she's a really great villain, and I wouldn't say she's like a villain because she does sort of become a protagonist later on, but she's kind of an antagonist to the goals of the protagonists in the original. So yeah, so that's that one. Okay, then next is Hakai Umeino from The Soul of the Sword. Well, this is the main book he's in, but he's in the whole trilogy, and I just love him. He's like the villain, but whew. Yeah, he's like so funny and charming, and he kind of he's sort of, I don't know, he's another one that like, he almost sort of wants what's best, but just going about it in kind of the wrong way. And yeah, I just think he's such a funny character to read about, and like, yeah, his points of view are like my favourite in this book, and yeah, I just really like him. And what more can I say, really? So yeah, like kind of charming villains I think are very interesting, and whenever they have like good kind of banter with the like protagonists, I always think is really interesting. And yeah, so that's that one. Okay, then next is, I can't remember the name, but the villain from Nevermore and Wondersmith. He's another like very charming villain who kind of, you almost don't know if he's like, if he actually wants what's best for Morrigan, or if he's just very much out for himself. And yeah, he's very interesting. I wouldn't say morally grey exactly, but like morally ambiguous maybe is the word. I don't know if they're the same thing, but so yeah, he's very interesting, and I love all his interactions with Morrigan, because every time they interact you almost feel like he's kind of almost a good guy, but then whenever they talk about him like separately, he seems very much like the bad guy. So yeah, it's a very interesting one, and I love how kind of, yeah, like charming he is. So yeah, that's that one. Next, I'm going to choose the bear from The Bear and the Nightingale. He's like one of my favourite characters, especially in Winter of the Witch. I just love him so much, and like how kind of he's like chaotic evil, which I consider myself chaotic good, but just like any chaotic energy I'm here for. So the kind of way he goes about like manipulating people, I just think is so interesting to read about. And yeah, like his banter with Visaya and also with Morovoko, is that his name? Can't quite remember his name, but yeah, is really interesting. And also the way he sort of manipulates Constantine in the last book, he's like this priest figure. They're like, all their interactions are so great. Yeah, I just think he's such like a fascinating character. So yeah, I really like him. He's like another kind of very like charming sort of. Then I'm gonna say the like 7 sort of sins, homunculi, I think they're called, from Full Metal Alchemist. I love them, especially Envy. They're my favourite. I just love how like crazy they are. I don't know, they're another like very chaotic energy type. I mean, I've only watched the anime, I haven't actually read the books, but I'm assuming they're kind of very similar. So yeah, I just love the kind of, I love the idea of the like 7 sort of deadly sins as characters. And yeah, Envy's sort of, yeah, very chaotic and very sort of evil for the sake of evil almost. They're just doing it for the for the kind of fun of it, really. And the way they like manipulate the protagonists and sort of interact with the protagonist, I think is really interesting as well. So yeah, I really like that. And then finally, I'm going to talk about my favourite. You're probably wondering why this one's been, and that is Meniza from the City of Brass trilogy. And if you watch I have a whole Empire of Gold book review, and I basically talk about Meniza for about 5 minutes. Yeah, I just love her so much. She's another one with like a really tragic backstory, and you can really like see how she's got to where she's got to almost. And in the 3rd book as well, you really see her kind of like descent of a villain arc, is what I call it, where the villain like really loses it. Kind of what happens to Azula at the end of Avatar. I think that's a really like fascinating thing to read about, and how you sort of see an event and then how that kind of makes them worse, and how they sort of really like lose it towards the end. But you also sort of, for Meniza, she has such, yeah, like a sad backstory, and you really feel for her, and you sort of see how she's gotten to where she's gotten to. And then yeah, and the things you find out about her towards the end of Empire of Gold are very like, and you find out that maybe she's actually even more villainous than you first thought. And yeah, she's such a fascinating character to read. And like her dynamic with Dara, I think is so interesting, and that's a very interesting like power dynamic. Yeah, also her kind of relationship with Nari and Jamshid as well is very like fascinating. And yeah, she loves them, but she loves them in like a very conditional way almost, which I think is a good like hallmark of a villain. So yeah, so I just really love her as a villain. And yeah, I think that's one of the highlights of that series, just like such a great villain. And also, oh yeah, I remembered who I'd forgot from the beginning, Mother Gothel from Tangled. She's an icon. The whole Mother Knows Best song, I just love that. So thank you for watching this video. Please comment down below and let me know who your favourite fictional villains are. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you're all having a great day, and I will see you next time.